Dana watched him walk off, already convincing herself she'd handled the situation perfectly. But Mike knew better. He could feel it. The man's calm wasn't normal. It wasn't passive. It felt intentional. Dangerously intentional. Across the showroom, the man wasn't leaving. Instead, he stepped up to a midnight black G-Class, running his hand along its grille the way someone touches something they already own. His posture was relaxed, but the air around him felt heavier than before. That was when Jake, one of the newer sales reps, spotted him and hesitated. Jake was known for being friendly, maybe too friendly sometimes, but he wasn't foolish. He saw the tension in the room. He sensed the silent friction in the air. Still, he stepped forward. "Hey man, need help with anything?" Jake forced a light tone, hoping to break whatever invisible pressure was floating around. The man turned his head, meeting Jake's eyes. "I was looking at the Navigator earlier," he said, "but I was told test drives are only for serious buyers. Is that true?" Jake's stomach dropped. He opened his mouth to answer, but before he could speak, Dana appeared beside him like a shadow that hated being ignored. "I'll take it from here, Jake." Her voice was smooth, controlled, but her eyes, cold and sharp, made Jake take a step back without arguing. The man studied the exchange with an expression that almost hinted at amusement. "You run a tight ship," he said softly, not accusing, not praising, just observing. Dana didn't flinch. "This dealership has standards," she replied. "We can't accommodate every person who wanders in here." There was no mask on her tone now. She wasn't even pretending. The man chuckled, a quiet sound, but it made Jake stiffen. "I visited a lot of dealerships," he said. "Some good, some less good. I've never seen someone work harder to avoid making a sale." Dana's lips pressed together. "That is not what's happening here." He tilted his head slightly. "Then let's make it simple. I'll write a check right now. Full amount. No financing. No delays." Jake's eyes shot open. Dana froze for a moment, just a moment, but the crack in her confidence was visible. "A generous offer," she said, voice softening. "But we still require documentation first." "It's policy." It wasn't policy. Everyone knew it. And the man, he definitely knew it. He didn't argue. He simply reached into his wallet again. This time Jake saw the card clearly. A jet black card with no visible number. The kind of card tied to unlimited spending and private banking teams. A card people didn't pull out unless they wanted you to understand exactly who they were. He held it between two fingers just long enough for Dana to process what she was looking at. Then he placed it back inside. "No test drive," he said softly. "Understood." He stepped back, turned, began walking away again. Dana kept her posture stiff, but Jake saw it, the panic hiding beneath her expression. Something about this man wasn't adding up. Something she was missing. And whatever it was, she had just decided to ignore it. Then the glass doors swung open again. The quiet shift in the dealership felt instant. Every salesperson straightened. Every voice lowered. Even Dana's posture changed. A man in his 50s walked in wearing a charcoal suit tailored so sharply it looked like it had been cut onto his body. Gray streaks through his hair, a confident stride, and an air of authority that didn't have to be announced. It was Ron Myers, regional director, a man whose presence meant one thing. Someone important was being evaluated. Dana pushed her shoulders back and lifted her chin. "Mr. Myers," she said quickly, her voice suddenly bright. "What brings you here today?" But Ron was barely listening. His eyes swept across the room and landed directly on the man in the gray sweatshirt. Ron's entire face opened into a warm smile. "There he is." Dana blinked. Ron walked straight past her. Not a pause, not a greeting, just a direct beeline toward the man she had refused to even acknowledge as a real customer. The man turned at the sound of Ron's voice and finally smiled, calm, confident, and familiar. "Good to see you, Ron," he said. Ron shook his hand firmly. "I was just about to call you." "You're early." Dana's stomach tightened. Jake slowly exhaled. Mike went still behind the desk. The entire energy in the room flipped upside down in the span of 2 seconds. Dana stepped forward, her voice suddenly smaller. "You two know each other?" Ron turned to her with genuine confusion. "Of course. Dana, meet Sam Turner." Dana's chest tightened. Ron continued. the new CEO of Crestline Automotive Group. Jake's mouth fell open. Mike's eyes widened. And Dana, she turned pale. Sam, who she had judged, dismissed, and blocked every step of the way, was now looking right at her. Not angry, not smug, just calm, dangerously calm. He walked into the dealership as quietly as a breeze. No fancy clothes, no watch that screamed status, no attitude that begged for attention. And within 10 seconds, the manager decided he wasn't worth her time. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his history. She didn't know she had just made the biggest mistake of her career. But he knew exactly what she had done, and he was about to change her life forever. This story starts in Riverstone Heights, a wealthy district just outside Charlotte. A place where high-end cars were as common as coffee shops. A place where appearances carried more weight than people realized. A place where the wrong assumption could burn an entire career to the ground. Inside Crestline Luxury Motors, a dealership known for its polished floors and elite buyers, Dana Collins stood behind her marble desk with a confidence she had built over 20 years. At 46, she believed she could read people faster than anyone else. One look, one glance at a customer's shoes, posture, or tone, and she would decide if they were worth her time. Some people judged books by their covers. Dana judged bank accounts by their outfits. And she believed she was always right. She smoothed her blazer and surveyed the showroom. Silver SUVs glowed under soft lighting. Sales staff moved carefully, speaking in low, polite voices. Every car smelled like new leather. Every corner screamed prestige. This was Dana's territory, a place she thought she fully controlled. When the glass doors opened, she heard the soft chime. A man walked in, mid-40s, calm, tall, wearing a basic gray sweatshirt, faded jeans, and running shoes that had survived many miles. He didn't carry himself like someone searching for attention. He walked the way people walk when they don't care who's watching. Slow, observant, completely unfazed by the polished extravagance around him. Dana's eyes narrowed. She didn't smile. She didn't greet him. She didn't even try. Instead, she leaned toward Mike, one of her sales associates, and lowered her voice so only he could hear. "Don't bother," she said. Mike hesitated, shifting his gaze between the man and his manager. He looked uneasy, but Dana didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't care. She had already decided the man couldn't afford anything in the showroom. She dismissed him before he even spoke a word. But the man wasn't wandering. He wasn't killing time. He wasn't lost. He walked directly toward a pearl white 2025 Navigator Platinum Edition, a model that cost more than some houses in the state. He placed his hand along the door frame, feeling the sleek finish. Then his eyes lifted, scanning across the room. They locked on Dana, and he began walking toward her. Dana straightened slightly, putting on the polite expression she reserved for people she didn't think would buy anything. She didn't bother hiding the impatience in her posture. The man stopped in front of her. "Hi," he said, his tone calm and steady. "I'm interested in that Navigator. I'd like some details on it." Dana gave him a smile, so thin it barely counted. "That is one of our highest-end models," she replied. "Over $170,000. He nodded. "Sounds right." Her brows lifted slightly at his lack of reaction. She continued, "Are you aware of the financial requirements for a purchase like that?" He held her gaze. "I won't be financing." Dana paused. Then she forced a small laugh that didn't sound genuine at all. "Well, if you're serious about the purchase, we do require a soft credit check before we go any further." Company policy. Mike's head turned sharply. That wasn't company policy. Everyone knew it, but no one challenged Dana. Not openly. The man didn't argue. He didn't look offended. He simply watched her with a stillness that made Mike shift nervously behind the desk. "I'd like to test drive it," the man said. Dana didn't flinch. No test drives on vehicles at that price point without verified income. He studied her face for a moment. Not angry, not surprised. There was something else in his eyes. Something controlled, patient. A man who had seen this kind of judgment before. Mike felt it too. A strange tension building beneath the surface. The kind that said this situation wasn't as simple as Dana believed. Dana crossed her arms. "We've had people pretending they can afford these cars," she said. Taking advantage of test drives just for fun. Surely you understand. He nodded slowly. I see. Her confidence rose. She glanced toward a customer in a tailored suit across the showroom, already preparing to dismiss this conversation completely. But the man spoke again. What if someone wanted to pay in full? He asked. No credit. No financing. Just a full amount up front. With a test drive policy change. Dana gave him a smile with no warmth behind it. I think you should focus on something more within your range. Our policies are strict for a reason. For the first time, a hint of amusement passed across his face. Is that so? His tone was calm. Too calm. Mike felt a chill in the air. Then the man reached into his back pocket and pulled out a slim wallet. Inside was a matte black card, the kind that didn't have to announce what it was, the kind that only a small fraction of the country carried. He let her see it, just long enough. He slid it back into his wallet. No test drive then, he said. Dana lifted her chin. Correct. The man gave a small nod. Then he walked away. But the way he moved now was different. Slower. More deliberate. As if he were taking in every part of the showroom with new eyes. Mike sensed something shifting. Something Dana didn't see coming. And as part one closes, the question hangs in the air like a storm about to break. Who exactly was this man? And why did he look like someone who already knew how this day would end? Sam didn't rush to speak. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look offended. He simply stood there, letting the silence stretch, letting Dana feel the weight of her own choices pressing down on her. Ron glanced between them, finally noticing the tension. What happened here? He asked. Sam didn't answer right away. He kept his eyes on Dana, watching her the way someone watches a person try to rebuild a broken lie. Mike swallowed hard behind the desk. He could feel the air thickening, tightening like a rope around the room. Finally, Sam turned his head slightly toward Ron. I came in today to see how this location operates, he said, unannounced, quiet, just observing. Ron nodded, still confused. And Sam's gaze slid back to Dana. And the first thing I discovered, he said, his voice even and steady, was that your sales manager has a habit of deciding who is worth her time before they even speak. Dana's breath hitched. I never said. Sam continued as if she hadn't spoken. She blocked me from viewing a vehicle. Told me credit checks were required before a conversation could continue. Told me policies that don't exist. Lied repeatedly. And made it clear she thought I had no business being here. The entire room went still. Dana took a shaky step forward. Mr. Turner, with all due respect, I believe I was following proper protocol. We've had issues in the past with people wasting time, and Sam raised his hand slightly. Not aggressive, just enough to cut her off. Let me ask something, he said. His tone remained calm, but the softness in it carried more weight than any anger could. When you looked at me, what did you see? Dana froze. It was a simple question, but it was also a trap. A mirror. A truth she wasn't prepared to confront. Sam waited. Patient. Still. Dana's throat tightened. I saw someone who might not be ready for a purchase like this. Sam nodded slowly. That's the surface answer. Then he stepped closer. Just one step, but enough for everyone to feel the shift. What did you really see? Dana's lips parted, but no words came out. Because she knew the answer. And Sam knew she knew. Mike stared at the floor. Jake held his breath. Every employee understood exactly what she had seen and exactly why she had dismissed him. Sam let the silence do the talking. When Dana couldn't respond, he turned to Mike. Mike, he said, how long have you worked here? 3 years, Mike replied quietly. And in 3 years, have you ever seen a customer required to run a credit check before being allowed to speak to a manager? Mike swallowed. No, sir. Dana's head snapped toward him, shocked he dared speak. Sam continued, unfazed. Have you ever seen someone refuse to test drive simply because of how they walked in? Mike hesitated, but just for a moment. No, sir. Dana felt her stomach drop. Sam nodded once, then faced Ron. This isn't a misunderstanding, he said. It's a pattern. Dana suddenly found her voice. Sir, please, let me explain. I've given 20 years to this company. I've trained teams, hit goals, exceeded expectations. I've earned a right to make judgment calls. Sam raised an eyebrow. And those judgment calls tell people like me that we don't belong here. It's not personal, she whispered. Sam's expression stayed unreadable. That, he said quietly, is exactly the problem. Dana stood frozen, her carefully built career beginning to crumble in real time. Sam looked around the room, taking a slow breath before speaking. I came here without an appointment, without a suit, without status. I did that to understand how real customers are treated. Not the ones with flashy watches or fancy clothes. The real ones. The ones who come here because they trust us to treat them with respect. He paused. And today, I got my answer. Dana's knees felt weak. Sam shifted his eyes back to her, his voice calm but final. You didn't just refuse a sale. You refused a human being. You refused someone based on a picture you created in your head. And you hid behind false policies to justify it. Ron stepped forward, his voice low. Dana, is this true? She looked between them, Ron, Sam, the entire team watching. For the first time in her career, she realized there was no way out. No excuse would fix this. No lie could rebuild what she had done. I made a mistake, she whispered. Sam shook his head gently. No, you made a choice. Jake closed his eyes, bracing for what was coming. Sam stood tall, steady, and unshaken. For that reason, he said quietly, you can't remain in this position. Dana's breath caught. Her voice cracked. You're firing me? Sam didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Yes. The word landed with the force of a hammer. Dana's hands trembled. She opened her mouth, maybe to plead, maybe to argue, but nothing came out. The reality hit her all at once. The years she spent building her reputation. The confidence she carried like armor. The certainty that she always knew best. Gone. In front of her staff. In front of a new CEO she had turned away. In front of truth she could no longer hide. Sam looked at her one last time. This wasn't about a sale, he said softly. It was about who you chose to be. Dana stood there, frozen in place, as if her body had forgotten how to move. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. She had climbed her way up this company one sale at a time. One long shift after another. One difficult client after the next. And now, in a matter of minutes, everything she thought she controlled slipped through her fingers like sand. But Sam wasn't finished. He let the silence linger just long enough for everyone to feel the weight of it. Then he spoke again, his voice calm, but carrying enough clarity to reach every corner of the showroom. When bias becomes habit, he said, it stops looking like a mistake. It becomes culture. No one spoke. Not Jake. Not Mike. Not even Ron. Dana stared at the floor, her face pale, her hands trembling lightly at her sides. She wanted to defend herself. She wanted to explain why she made the choices she did. She wanted to take everything back. But she couldn't. Because deep inside, she knew Sam wasn't wrong. She had judged him the moment he walked in. And she had done it without thinking twice. Sam took a slow breath, scanning the room again. When a customer walks through these doors, he said, they should feel welcome. They should feel respected. They should feel seen. Not sorted into categories based on a manager's assumptions. Jake shifted uncomfortably. Mike looked down at his hands. Ron cleared his throat, his voice softer than anyone expected. We've always said we're proud of our customer service, he said. But maybe we haven't been watching closely enough. Sam turned to him. That's why I came unannounced. Not to embarrass anyone. Not to create a spectacle. But because I needed to see the truth without filters. He glanced at Dana once more. And now I've seen it. Dana finally lifted her head, eyes glassy. I know what this looks like, she whispered. But I never meant to hurt anyone. Sam didn't scold her. He didn't shame her. He didn't attack her. He simply nodded, almost gently. Intent doesn't erase impact. Her shoulders sagged, the weight of the statement hitting harder than anything else. And then something happened no one expected. Sam stepped past Dana and turned toward the employees. For the first time since he walked in, his tone shifted. Not angry, not disappointed, but steady and focused. This isn't just about one person, he said. This is about the standards we allow, the behavior we ignore, the training we haven't updated, the gaps in judgment we never corrected. Jake's jaw clenched. He knew exactly what Sam meant. Sam continued. People think leadership is about titles, about power, about control. But real leadership is about responsibility. And today, it became my responsibility to face what's truly happening here. Ron nodded slowly. Understand, he said. I should have caught this sooner. Sam didn't pile on. Then we fix it now. The words didn't come out as a threat. They came out like a promise. The promise of change. Then he turned back to Dana, who still stood stiffly, her eyes brimming, but refusing to let anything fall. I know you gave this place years, Sam said quietly. But sometimes years can't outweigh a single moment that reveals who we truly are. And today, that moment happened. Dana swallowed hard. A part of her wanted to fight. A part of her wanted to beg. But she knew, deep in her bones, that nothing she said could erase what she had done or the way she had treated someone she believed wasn't worth her time. Sam took one step back, giving her space. What you choose to do after this, he said, is up to you. Growth is always possible. Change is always possible. But it has to start somewhere. His voice softened, but the gravity didn't fade. And today it starts with stepping away from this position. Dana didn't argue. She didn't deny it. She simply nodded, barely, but enough to acknowledge her downfall. Jake looked away. Mike tightened his jaw. Even Ron seemed to carry the heaviness in his posture. Because everyone in that room knew something important. Dana wasn't the only one who needed this wake-up call. She was just the one who triggered it. Sam exhaled slowly and then addressed the staff. We're going to rebuild this location. We're going to retrain, rethink, refocus. Not because we want better sales, but because we want better people. His voice carried through the room with calm certainty. And I expect every one of you to be part of that shift. A quiet sense of clarity settled over the employees. Fear mixed with relief. Uncertainty mixed with hope. Dana stood motionless, staring at the floor, realizing she was now the cautionary tale of everything that needed to change. Sam gave her one last glance, steady, honest, and without cruelty. I hope this becomes a turning point for you, he said softly. Not the end of something, but the start of becoming someone better. And with that, he stepped away, signaling that this chapter was closing. But the shift he caused, the awakening he sparked, was just beginning. Part 4 ends here, with the entire dealership standing in the echo of one man's quiet truth and the choices that would reshape everything. Sam walked toward the center of the showroom, not rushing, not slowing, just moving with a calm purpose that made every person in the room silently shift to give him space. The pressure in the air finally eased its grip, but the silence remained, heavy enough to settle into everyone's bones. Jake let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Mike wiped a palm against his slacks. Ron straightened his tie for the third time, trying to process everything at once. Dana remained still, unable to move, unable to speak. The realization of everything she had lost pressed in her chest. But beneath all the shock, something else flickered, something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Reflection. Sam turned to face the employees, his voice steady again. Everyone in this room plays a part in how this place runs, he said. How customers feel, how this brand grows. And today we saw the gap between what we say we stand for and what we actually practice. Jake nodded slowly. Mike looked up with a quiet sense of understanding. Ron placed his hands behind his back, listening more closely than ever. Sam continued. People think bias is loud, obvious, easy to spot, but most of the time it's quiet, small, hidden under habits and assumptions. That's what makes it dangerous. His words settled into the room like truth sinking into water, spreading outward until everyone felt it. I didn't walk in here as the CEO, he said. I walked in as a customer who wanted to be treated like anyone else. And what happened today showed me that we have work to do. Real work. He paused. But we can do it. That simple sentence sparked something. Hope, maybe. Or relief. Or both. Sam's voice softened, but it stayed firm. This isn't about perfection. It's about accountability. About growth. About choosing to do better every single day, even when no one is watching. Ron took a step forward, his tone sincere. I'll support whatever changes need to happen, he said. We all will. Sam nodded. That's what I want to hear. He turned, his gaze sweeping the room one last time. Not with anger. Not with disappointment. with intention. Then he walked toward the exit, the doors sliding open as he neared them. But before he stepped outside, he glanced back at the staff. "You never know who's walking through your door," he said. "So treat every person like they matter. Because they do." The doors closed behind him. For a moment, no one moved. Then Jake exhaled. Mike leaned back against the desk, shoulders dropping. Ron rubbed his forehead, already running through the changes that needed to happen. And Dana, she finally turned and walked toward the employee exit, her steps slow, her mind spinning. Not with anger, not with denial, but with a painful understanding she wished had come before it was too late. As she reached the end of the hallway, she paused for a brief moment. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She knew exactly what she had lost, and she knew why. Back in the showroom, the employees gathered near the center, the air lighter now, but filled with unspoken realizations. Jake looked at Mike. That was intense. Mike nodded, but needed. Ron joined them, his voice steady. "Things are going to change here, and you two are part of that change. The good kind." Jake managed a small smile. Mike exhaled again, but this time with relief. There was no more tension in the room, no more fear, only clarity. The clarity that comes when a truth finally surfaces after being buried for too long. Later that evening, after the final customers had left and the lights dimmed, the team stood together, not out of obligation, but out of a shared understanding that today wasn't just the end of someone's career. It was the beginning of a different future, a better one, the kind built on respect, not assumptions, on awareness, not arrogance, on the simple belief that every person deserves dignity the moment they walk through the door. And for the first time in a long time, the dealership felt different. Not perfect, not fixed, but awake. An awakening sparked by one man who walked in looking ordinary, yet carried the power to reshape everything. And that's the truth at the heart of what happened that day. Sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest moments. Sometimes the greatest lessons come from the quietest voices. And sometimes the stranger you underestimate becomes the leader who changes your world. Not because he wanted to teach you a lesson, but because he refused to let your assumptions define him. And just like that, the story ends not with anger, but with a chance to grow, a chance to change, a chance to see people, not appearances. Because in the end, the smallest decisions truly can create the biggest consequences.